From bed joints to beer joints. It's a hell of a way to start a business. Go to prison first to come up with an idea to start a business. But that's exactly what happened. I'm Mad Jack here for our new channel, Somethin's Brewin. And Somethin Brewin is a channel about a lot of things, but it all spawns from prison. From the 30 years total that I and GT, my partner, spent, where we took a bit of time there to kind of decide what we were going to do when we got out and actually followed through on it. I wanted to be a writer, and he wanted to brew beer, and somehow it both came together. And after 4 books and a new album coming out, and Prison Break Brewery, our beer, we're kind of moving along. We're not successful yet to the point we want to be, not close, because we're not sure where we want to be, and we're not really sure what total success is. But we made it out there, and we got out here, and we thought we'd share things with you, because I've been watching, and so has GT, a lot of the YouTube and maybe some of the TV things we've seen, the streaming about prison life or whatever, and it never really quite struck me as all of it's real. And there's a lot of it talking about the tough guy stuff, the tattoos, sleeping with the shank under the bed, and all these things. Some of that isn't true, but the reality is that the prison system is really kind of ridiculous. It's really a waste of time for a lot of people. A lot of people are over-sentenced. Some people are under-sentenced. Don't get me wrong. There's people in the prison that you don't want walking around in your neighborhood, in your town, and maybe even your state. But there's a lot of people there that's just kind of a messed up deal, and a lot of it's just hilarious. It's just bizarrely funny. There's some characters in there you wouldn't even believe exist. And we're going to tell some of those stories. And we're going to look at it from a sarcastic and funny side. We're going to tell you stories about a guy who walked up to me in the sidewalk one day and said, I woke up this morning speaking fluent Russian. I said, say a few things for him. He says, I've lost it already, and walked off. Or the 2 guys who shaved a mouse one time to teach it a lesson because it kept chewing up their crackers in their locker, and then they turned it loose. Things like that. These are the kind of people we're in prison with, and they give you a lot of great stories. And then we're going to tell you the stories of corruption in the prison system, from the federal side and the inmate side. And there's both. And sometimes they join together, and you're going to have some stories that will be very interesting. We'll tell you stories about contraband. Not the contraband you might be thinking of, like the knives, the weapons, and all these type of things there. We're talking about, there's a lot of cell phones. We're talking about pizza getting brought into the camp or whatever on a Friday night. Or maybe just some pop, or maybe it's just, cookies or whatever. A number of things will be happening. But anyway, all those things we'll talk about as well. And then we're going to talk about prison life and how it affects you and what happens afterwards and what you do when you get out. And a lot of guys get out, and a lot of gals get out and don't really know what they're going to do. And we did. And we followed through on it. But we're going to look at it from a different perspective here. Coming out, getting a job, staying out of trouble, meeting up with your family again, meeting up with your friends again, meeting up with people who won't talk to you, maybe their family and friends. Happened to all of us. It's happened to me, even though I had a pretty good support system. But we'll talk about those things. You know what? We're going to throw a section in. I was asked about prison recipes. I know that, Martha Stewart has this thing about prison recipes. I haven't seen the book. Don't care. Because she doesn't really fit into our category. We don't really count people who spent just a few months in there as being long-term inmates. But we'll give you some recipes like, prison cheesecake, which is made out of old stale coffee creamers, and hooch. How to make hooch out of rotten fruit. I don't know why you'd want to, but I've been asked several times from people, how did they make this hooch? And I'll tell you ahead of time, it smells like baby barf. But we'll get to that at a certain point. And then we'll talk about how we got our business started when we got out, and some of the things that we had to go through because we were inmates and we're felons, and we understand that, and some of the difficulties we ran through, and how the federal system really doesn't help you ever. How there really is no classes in the prison to teach you things, the ones we were in, unless the inmates were putting them on. And how the inmates, most time, really do run the institutions. It is kind of like a Hogan's Heroes type thing. That's not far from reality, and there's some hilarious stories behind that. I'm telling you, there's some stuff you're not going to believe, but it's real, and it's all based on our observations. We were there when these things happened. We're also going to interview some other people who are in there. I think some people you're going to find very interesting who were successful after they got out. We got a young lady who recorded a song for us who spent quite a bit of time in prison, done very well for herself. She'll be on. We have her video on as well. A song that I wrote, that we produced with her on it. I think you'll like. We've done a lot of music, mostly country music. Don't run away if you're not a country music fan. Just take a second. We're not trying to sell it to you. In fact, some of what we're going to give to you. You can listen to it. See what you think. We'll also be talking to a couple other people who started a business when they got out. Also, we're going to have a guest that's my wife, who is 24 years my junior and a career woman. We were married after I got out of prison. She's never had any experience in prison, and other than me. And she will come on and talk about what it's like to be married to an old coot like me. And she'll answer the question for you that she's asked many, many times. And that question is, when you married this guy, he's that much older than you, number one. And number two, he's been to prison. What the hell were you thinking? I can't answer that one. She will. And many other questions. She'll let me do a segment day by day, Steph, and other things about being married to someone that old now who used to be a criminal. Not a criminal anymore, used to be. So that'll be some segments we put on there. We're going to start our series off with pretty quick. We're going to do an interview. I'm going to talk to GT, and he's going to tell you some things about some weird things that happened in prison, how the whole beer business got started, how we got to where we're at on some of these things. Some of the people we spent time with in prison, for example, George Jung, who was the Johnny Depp played in the movie Blow. George and I got to be friends in a place called La Tuna FCI down the Mexican border. And there's a lot of other guys we'll talk about. Some not that many famous name as George, but there's some strange characters, I'm telling you. And there's strange characters on both sides of it. The only difference sometimes in the inmates and the correctional officers' color of that shirt. And you'll see that. We'll bring it to you in a light way. We're not going to make it, like I said, the tough guy thing. We're not going to say, oh, I've got tattoos, I got in this fight, this guy got shanked. In fact, the only time we're going to talk about shanked and someone being shanked is when we show you our beer. First beer, shanked. Pretty proud of that. I hope you tune in. Remember, we'll be talking about going from concrete walls to craft beer. Join us back here on Something's Brewing, and hope to see you soon.